when a patron commissioned a work of art, a public work of art, it was considered like a gift for the society. So they gained fame. Also, the major patrons helped a lot for the development of the art. For example, Cosimo de' Medici helped Michelozzo to design the Palazzo de' Medici. Now I'm going to tell you the principal artists and also their most important works. First of all, Leonardo da Vinci, that was really important because they made the Last Supper. That was really important because it represents all the elements of the Renaissance paintings. For example, a great background, also a perspective, dimensions, and also a religious theme. Then was Michelangelo Buonarroti, who painted all the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican, and there he painted the creation of Adam. Then was Sandro Botticelli, who created the Birth of Venus and Primavera. Raphael Sanzio created the Sistine Madonna, and Filippo Brunelleschi created the Duomo di Verona. The Renaissance art ended while the Baroque art was beginning. But in the middle of this period was the Mannerism. This was a type of art that wanted something different compared to the Renaissance. They represent, the artists of the Mannerism represent some movement. They used long necks, long torsos, long hands, and also vibrant colors. And when the Mannerism ended, the Baroque started to develop to have like an importance. Now I'm going to tell you why was the Renaissance developed in Italy. Well, there were three principal reasons: the localization, the economy, and also the political system. First of all was the localization, because Italy was in the middle of the Eastern and Western Europe. That means that Italy could commerce with a lot of countries, and also that it have access to the Adriatic and the Mediterranean seas. Also had access to the Ottoman Empire, and Italy was the home of the ancient Rome. Then was the economy. Italy was really different compared to Europe, because in Italy it wasn't developed the feudalism. So the most of the people lived in the cities, but in Europe, the most of the people lived in the countryside, farming the land. So in Italy, there was a lot of commerce, so a new social class emerged that were the reason was the political merchants. System. Italy wasn't a unified nation. That means that not all the cities have the same governmental system. For example, not all the cities were ruled by a monarch, for example. That means that the cities were independent, so they could have their own governmental system, they could make their own decisions, and also there were four principal cities that were, all the cities were called city-states because they were independent. And the most important were Venice, that have a really good commerce through the sea, Milan, Rome, and also Florence. That was really important because of the wool trade, and also because it's in Florence that the Renaissance was developed. Also, the leaders of these important cities were called Italian princes, and there were several families, for example, the Medicis, the Fascis, and another one that were really important because they have like some political power, and also they could take some decisions. Also, all the city states have to produce one good or one product. The governmental system of Florence was a signoria that had 9 members that were in an election, so only the citizens could vote for them. To be a citizen, you have to be more than 30 years old. You have to be a male. You have to be in a guild. Also, you have to be not in in debt, and also you have to be not a relative of that member of the signoria. Florence had 21 guilds that were association of merchants, artists, and craftsmen, and their objective was to produce services and goods. Also, the other role of the guilds was to educate the apprentices. Now I'm going to talk about the society. Well, first of all, were the royal rulers that controlled all the government in the city-states. They were, for example, the dukes or the princes. Then, in second in the pyramid, were the nobles, or also they were called the grandi. They were really rich people that owned a lot of land and that had a lot of influence in the society. For example, with the ideas of humanism, of ancient Greece and Rome. Also, they had a lot of political rights, political titles, and also they could be military commanders. Then were the merchants, also called the Popolo Grasso. And they were really important because they commerced a lot with Asia, and that's why they were really rich, and they could have big and beautiful palaces, all decorated with a lot of ornaments. Also, they were really important because they were patrons of a lot of artists and architects, for example, that made a lot of paintings, sculptures, or ornaments for their houses to show or to demonstrate that they were really rich. Then were the skilled workers. The skilled workers were the people that were like in the middle of the pyramid, so they were like a little bit poor, not a lot, but a little bit. They lived in small houses, but in comfort. Also, the skilled workers worked a lot and were, for example, the butchers, the metal workers, the shoemakers, the armor makers, the carpenters, etc. And they were really important because they formed the guilds. And finally were the unskilled workers, that were also called the popolo minuta. They lived in really bad conditions in the poorest areas in the cities. In the family, all the people worked, included the children. Also, obviously, they didn't have any political right, and they made really unhealthy jobs. Then, in the pyramid, were the peasants. The peasants were really important because they farmed the land, so all the people could have food. Also, they lived in poor conditions, but in the countryside. And also, the peasants, all the family worked, including the children.